Unfortunately, it's possible. That's why we are meeting here at the Luxembourg Forum, because there are risks of blundering into a nuclear catastrophe. There are lots of tensions around the world, in all regions of the world, really, in the Northern Hemisphere, that could escalate to a nuclear confrontation. And that confrontation, by one spark or another, could potentially escalate to the use of nuclear weapons. It's a very real, serious conversation that we need to have. Well, I think the fear of nuclear war today is actually very high. I don't know what it was like before I was born, but when the bomb was first born. But certainly there has been a renewal of sort of a Cold War of sorts between Russia and the United States. There has been a deterioration around the world in geopolitical relations, and there has been increasing tendency to resort to the use of force to exert the national interests of the various countries. So there is a rising level of concern about the possibility that these tensions among countries, especially the United States and Russia, also in India and Pakistan, and North Korea and elsewhere, could erupt into a nuclear confrontation. So I would say the level of public awareness is low. There's a general complacency for lack of information, education, and understanding. And that's one of the missions of the Luxembourg Forum, to try to explain to people why they should be concerned, very concerned today. Well, we need to get back to first principles, build trust between our countries, restore a commitment to nuclear arms control, which creates enormous stability, predictability. Going to be a very difficult challenge for all of the, it's going to be a very difficult challenge because we are, particularly in the case of the United States and Russia, at rock bottom in our relationship in terms of the last 20 or 30 years. Oh, so the first important step that we need to take in U.S.-Russia relations, I think, is to extend START 3, which expires in about, in 2021. So we don't have a lot of time, but we do have time. So we need to extend that for 5 years, and then we move on to try to negotiate another more ambitious agreement between our countries, and possibly find ways to bring China into the conversation, the dialogue, and possibly even into a negotiation with Russia and the United States. Well, I mean, everyone knows that if terrorists get their hands on the fissile materials, the plutonium or the highly enriched uranium, then it is possible to, even for amateurs, but with some technical skills, to build a nuclear weapon. And we know that if terrorists acquire that capability, they would not hesitate to deliver it to some city in Russia or the United States or elsewhere and blow it up. So the key to preventing nuclear terrorism really is to ensure that the materials are secure, that they can't be captured, stolen, or purchased. Uranium, plutonium, especially uranium. The Trump administration is so unpredictable that I don't want to bet any money on what's going to happen next in this administration. But with the removal of the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who was a one-man wrecking ball for arms control, I think it's possible that President Trump could wake up one day and say, we should at least extend the New START treaty. And part of the reason I say that is because I've never met a single senior U.S. military officer who didn't think that it was not in our interest to extend New START. All of the military believe in the value of arms control with Russia, and they would support any impulse on the part of President Trump to move in this direction. You know, the INF Treaty is basically dead. There is unresolved accusations about cheating on the treaty that aren't going to be sorted out very easily. It's possible that we won't save the treaty, but we might be able to preserve some elements of the treaty. And that is, in fact, the proposal of the Luxembourg Forum declaration that we just concluded, that we could, for example, have a moratorium on the deployment of mid-range missiles in the European and Asian theaters. And I think that is very possible, but it will be difficult to sell. But it's not a treaty. A treaty in the United States right now is not going to be signed and ratified by the U.S. Senate, the Parliament, because of the unresolved question of cheating on the current INF treaty. So I don't think we're going to have any shot at a new treaty, but we might be able to have a moratorium, and this was proposed by President Putin, on the deployment of new INF range missiles in Europe and in Asia. I personally think it's in China's interest to join into some kind of moratorium or limitation or even some negotiation to try to prevent a arms race in Asia around the mid-range missiles, short and middle range missiles. Space-based weapons, it's not a good move. We don't want to transfer an arms race on Earth into space and beyond, into the rest of the solar system. We want to keep our issues on the ground here and resolve them. The key problem with development and deployment of weapons in space is that they could neutralize critical satellite and other assets that all of our countries need to maintain nuclear command, control, and communications. If you lose command and control, if that fails, nothing else matters. And we depend on space to maintain command and control of nuclear weapons. So if countries start to disable satellites, they're taking the risk that a crisis could spin out of control because we're losing control over our nuclear forces. It's a terrible idea. We need to regain we need to get a handle on this problem very soon.